Hi, welcome to this week's CS on Air. Hi, welcome to this week's CS on Air. Today we've got Webmaster Rupert Brayoni with us. Rupert is originally a marine biologist, but he's been passionate about web design for many years, and he's been with Google for 5 years now of designing web pages. Some of you may know him for the Santa Tracker. That's the application that has Santa flying around Google Earth delivering the presents on Christmas Eve. But today he's here in his capacity as Google Webmaster. So I'll now hand over to Rupert, also known as Santa. Thanks very much.
Santa's helper. I think I've got a promotion there, but thank you, Alison. Well, thank you very much for joining us. Just to kind of reiterate, we're calling this module "Speeding Up Website Development with Industry Best Practice," and I wanted to shed a bit of insight into how Google approaches these things, and with lots of examples. And one of my favorite thing, and slightly scary, a bit of live coding. So I think the first half we're going to look at some good resources that I and a lot of other webmasters use on a daily basis. And the second half, I'll show you actually putting some of this into practice and how easy it can be to make a website that does kind of conform to industry first practice. But the first thing I want to do actually is just go through, and I'm going to share my screen with you and show a few things that I find quite inspiring. So I'm hoping quite a few of you will recognize this site. This was the winning website from the Junior Swiss Web Awards this year, and it was just phenomenal. And it starts with this really lovely little opening thing. We've got a light switch up the top here. Click, and the lights come on. And I would describe that as something quite googly already. That's a very delightful feature. This was a site that won because it did an awful lot of what we love about web design very, very well indeed. And in fact, if you didn't know this was just a school project, you would think this was somebody who'd spent a lot of money and a lot of time putting this together. The time, I know, is true. The money, maybe not so much, but it's a terrific resource. My French isn't what it could be, so I am going to use Google Chrome to translate, and that makes my life a little easier. But you can kind of see we've got a lovely looking site here.
No, we've just lost Rupert, but I think he'll be back any second.
All right, sorry about that. I think I may have lost you for a minute there.
Back.
When did I cut out? At what point?
Just when you were saying what a lovely site it was.
Okay. All right, let me try that again. I'll do the screen share. Back to the window. So I hope you can see this again. It was just a terrific site all round, and it did stick with a lot of what we consider as Googly principles, which I'd like to outline some of you. I think that the core thing I'd say, rather than a technical aspect, it's the content, and that's what we love at Google, just good, solid content. And if I look here, I'm actually in the market for lights at the moment. Just this whole fantastic thing of comparing various light bulbs. This is really useful for me, and this is something I have actually used when I'm choosing light bulbs myself just now. It just does lots and lots of wonderful things. So we're going to kind of build this around a recent blog post, well, a couple of years blog post again, and we have some interesting points here. I'd just like to kind of convey how we sort of attempt to use this in our websites at Google. So first and foremost, the language is a little bit flowery, but I think it bears repeating. Focus on people, their lives, their work, their dreams. So I think that the take-home point about this is you're not designing a website for yourself. You're designing it for the people that wish to engage with your content. All of these notes are actually in the show notes. So what I'll maybe do is just go back to a headshot and then walk through the rest of these with you. So don't worry, you have links to all of this material and you can read up on it yourself. So yeah, so design it for the users of the content, not for you, because ultimately they're the ones that are going to reward all your hard work with, well, their time or their money, depending on what kind of site you're running. The second one is It's another very important one for us. Every millisecond counts. So that's not just time is important, but your user's time is important. We're talking about it in milliseconds, thousandths of a second. And a lot of Google engineers spend a lot of time just shaving these tiny percentages of seconds off. Because when you have a website that responds quickly, it just feels snappier. You spend more time on it. It's a more enjoyable experience. And importantly, you get to your content quicker. Simplicity, always a good thing. There's plenty of distractions in the world as it is, and we don't need our websites to be another one of these things. So as they say, make it as simple as you can and no simpler. Don't feel you have to throw a lot of design or interactions or content that might be extraneous. Just keep it to the bare minimum, and then your material is easier to navigate around. I think this one is maybe slightly more related to products. So for something like Gmail, one of our, well, I think everybody knows our webmail product. It's easy for beginners. You can just hit lots of nice colorful buttons to do the reply and the forward and things like this. But what do we mean by attract experts? Well, the expert mode for something like Gmail is you can switch on keyboard shortcuts. So if you want to get really heavy duty into you know, a slightly more elaborate experience, there's all sorts of layers of complexity you can turn on, but it's off by default when you start, and so it's easy for the beginners to get to grips with it. Innovate. I'd probably suggest another great example of this is something like Google Maps, because before Google Maps came along, the idea of an online mapping service just was a static map, just as a giant graphic. And what would happen, if you wanted to move to the right and see what was in the east, you had to click a button and the page would reload, and it would just recenter this big image that was your main map area, which seems prehistoric now, but that was just how it was done. So when we had this idea of a live scrolling map that you could interact with, just that dynamic element, it just was phenomenal. I mean, I didn't work for Google when this came out, and I was just amazed. I mean, I absolutely loved this. Design for the world. If I related this to what we do at Google, I'd say we'd be looking at something like language support. So what we try and do with all our major products, we'll launch in potentially 40 different languages. And so we don't expect everybody to read English. If you want to read it in Hindi or Philippines, is that Tagalog? I think the name of that is different now. There's all sorts of languages and the most amazing fonts and scripts available. But remember that your audience, with the nature of the web as it is, could be outside of your home country. And if your content is good, one hopes it would go worldwide as well. Plan for today's and tomorrow's business. I'm going to have to mull that one over a little more. I'm going to reinterpret that one as be future-proof. So sometimes what you find is you start a website one way, you find the feedback you get from users is a little bit different. So bear that in mind, and you can change the direction as you go according to feedback. Delight the eye without distracting the mind. This is, again, I would say this is avoiding design for design's sake, and actually only put these visual elements in if they convey extra information or they make the user interface easier to get around. So that one's can be open to interpretation as well. Be worthy of people's trust. Well, that's an important one. If you're going to gather data, make sure you tell them what the usage conditions are. One hopes you're not selling details on to third parties, whatever, and users will want to trust you. So make that very clear and stick to that. So just be very open about what you do with people's information, and then people will trust you and reward you by coming back to your website. And then the final element, and this is a fun one, we have something called add a human touch. You've probably heard of Easter eggs. Occasionally, I think one of my favorite examples is the Android phone Android character, this little green character, and he crops up in a few of our websites. He does nice little animated things. He's a real character, and I'm very fond of him. But I'll show you a quick example. Go back to share screen. I don't know how many of you are familiar with some of these Google Easter eggs, but the classic one, if you go to google.com, do a barrel. Oh, there we go, straight off. So this is an old video game reference. I guess it's one of these meme things. When you search for this phrase, do a barrel roll, you get exactly this. Oh, too late, I think. But you saw the screen spin around, I think. So somebody just had an afternoon doing some fun coding and get this amazing special effect, which is fun. So occasionally you can do something a little bit silly, but it just gives everybody a smile and makes your website a little bit more unexpected and exciting. So what I'll do now, I'm going to go through some of the resources that we use when we're planning a website. And these are all things that are publicly available and you can use yourselves. And it never hurts to see some of the good stuff that other people create. I'd always suggest that there's plenty of inspiration out there, and don't be shy of borrowing some of what's out here. If you want to read a little bit more about some of the Google principles, again, there's links to this in the notes. We just have some observations on how people interact with technology in our websites. This will be in the notes, but let's go to some design inspiration. So it's very rare that you'll sit down and just start coding a site. What's probably going to happen is you can have the situation where you have a rough idea of the content, or rather one would hope you would have a very good idea of the content, because the content always comes first. But then you need some angles, some kind of nice visuals, some color schemes. You don't have to copy anything here, but this is a site I quite like. This is something called Pattern Tap, and people submit their own sites to this and just highlight when they have interesting elements. So if you're really struggling, say, with a form, forms can be important because you might be requiring people to sign up for a product that you create. And if it's very difficult to find the submit button, well, that's not helping anybody. So here we've got a library. It looks like 460 different approaches to a form. And it just gives you this nice collection of screen shots. Wow, so MySpace is in here. So that's interesting. Looking at this graphic here, they're kind of broken away from this thing of just these white boxes in space. They have this nice kind of typographic treatment. It looks very modern. It's quite a nice one. Let's see what else we've got. We've got things like portfolios. It's a classic for the visual designers. There's all sorts of different types of designs you can do. This one jumps out already. That's lovely. We've got this nice diagonal thing going on. That's really cute. So I kind of think you can see this, and you can go through and zoom in on this stuff and look at the proper website. So it's a great place to go for inspiration. Like I say, you don't need to copy any of this. One hopes you don't, but it never hurts to kind of see what ideas are out there just now. Now this is one that I use quite a lot myself, and kind of particularly for my private projects. I struggle a little bit with colors sometimes. I don't have any classical training in art or graphic design, and so I can tell if there's a nice color palette on the site, and this is a lovely way of kind of getting some very soothing complementary colors. So you can choose a look and a feel and generate some of these palettes here. And this is something you can use. You've got every color has got a name. We've got a hex value up here, which if you're going to add colors in your CSS, that's the kind of key value there. Or you can just sample it if you're still creating mock-ups in Photoshop or something like this. But I'm a huge fan of this website, and I do it a lot for my sites outside of Google. We're a little more restricted internally with Google because we have our corporate colors. But I think it's terrific just to see some of these other ideas out there. And just dig through. I just come to visit for a couple of minutes and then stay for a long time because they have these gorgeous color schemes out here. It's a nice one too. So what else do I use for inspiration? Well, this is a collaboration tool. I can hope everybody's heard of, well, it used to be called Google Docs. We call it Google Drive now. And this is a suite of applications. It includes things like word processing. You can have presentation, create presentations with this, spreadsheets, all sorts of things. In the old days, you used to have to download an Office package, and that would cost a lot of money. And this is basically free for anybody. And the beauty about this is it's collaborative. You can have one document. Lots of people can share it. You can be editing it in real time. There's a little diagram there with the users kind of interacting. And if you're actually working as part of a team, something like this is just phenomenally useful. So I would recommend everybody, you may actually already have it as part of your class, but yeah, get signed up to Google Drive, and this will save you a lot of hassle. And in fact, what I'm going to do is show you an example of a document right off the bat. So in the standard workflow, we've got an idea of the content we want to put together. What I would probably do is I would have put that into a Google Doc, specifically the word processing template, and I would work with my colleagues, make some edits. You can add comments, there's revision history, and then when we know roughly what the content is going to look like in the doc, and we would ask for sign-off, we get finalized content, we can be working simultaneously in something like this. This should be a lovely draw template, and this exists out there. There's actually some terrific resources that people have shared that again are free, anybody can use. And this is just one I particularly like that was a web page mock-up generator. The idea for this is you're not looking to create the final look and feel of your website. It's just a way to get rough visuals together, but it can be very effective. So let me just show you how easy this is to edit. If I'm going to change this graphic, I'm not so sure I like that position in the blue bar. I don't want to have a carousel, I just want to have a single video. So all of this stuff is editable. And like I say, you can pass this on. You can block it out yourself, even if you're not a designer, but you can pass it on to a designer and then get more detailed feedback. So I'm actually going to take this visual element here and then resize it here. So this is an alternate approach I'm going to take. And then I can start blocking out content here. Ugh. Okay, you get the idea. I'm not quite double clicking in there. There we go. So it's a really quick way of putting roughs together. You don't have to be a designer to use this. Some of these better templates are available. Just have a search for them. Come with all sorts of useful elements. We've got multiple scroll bars. We've got buttons if you want to rough out a form. All sorts of little inputs and player devices. Things that would take you quite a while to recreate yourself in a graphics package. And again, these templates are just freely available, shareable, collaborative. So please make use of these. I hope you find them as useful as we do. And then I'm going to let you into a little bit of a secret here. You don't even have to know a lot of HTML. Something that's kind of come to light the last 4 or 5 years, this idea of frameworks. And a framework is, usually it's based around CSS. This is something that Twitter, that everybody knows about. They've shared something that they use on their own site, but they've created a version just for the general public. So if you want to kind of create a gridded layout very quickly, you can use it with whatever your text editor of choice. Now, I'll come back to this in a minute. We're going to do a 10-minute website. Hopefully I'll show you how quickly you can create these things. But this is a great website, some good resources, some examples of the site in use. And the best thing about it, to my mind, is it automatically adds this responsive design in, which you'll hear a lot of people talking about just now, which is basically supporting alternate layouts for mobile devices. So you're looking at mobile phones, tablets, smartphones, this kind of a thing. So we'll come back to this very briefly. Some more resources. This is actually one of ours. We've got a website called HTML5 Rocks. Some terrific stuff in here, some great examples. So again, you can spend hours looking through this. Please do, some very good material. Something called Schema, if you're really into, this helps with things like search engines and marking up content correctly. It can get a little technical, but it's worth going through. So if you were doing a website about a person, you would kind of look through some of these references, and I think this it talks about microdata. This is a little more niche, but it's something that's worth being aware of. It's just the website isn't terribly pretty, but it's a good resource as well. jQuery, I guess, is what we call a JavaScript framework. This is a library that does a lot of very nice things that to be honest, would take you a lot of time to do if you had to code them yourself, and certainly for the cross-browser support. There's a few nice elements in here I'll show you. So rather than having to kind of create these from scratch, that draggable element, that's surprisingly complex to do yourself. You need quite a bit of JavaScript, and again, making it work on all the possible browsers. And using a library like jQuery, you can just have all that hard work done for you. This you probably recognize, is what we call an accordion navigation. There's actually simpler ways to do this with CSS, but if you want full cross-browser support, again, you can't go wrong with a bit of jQuery. And then this is one of my favorites. This would be a nightmare to hand code yourself. You have a date picker. If I click in there, you can see it's already picked out the correct date, and just so simple. And that would take a day of engineering, easy, to have to create that from scratch. The idea that you can just pull that from a library is phenomenal, so I think you would probably find that quite useful. A good resource for CSS, if you ever need to dig a little bit deeper. I love Alist Apart. It pretty much is where I learned nearly all of my CSS, particularly the responsive stuff. And so we have some terrific articles here, which again are very well written, and they always come with very good code examples. So again, this is something I would point you towards. And then when you've built your site, you want to see how it's performing, how people are interacting with it. I'm sure you've heard of Google Analytics. Gives you a terrific insight into how many people are visiting your page, but not just that, the pages are spending most time on, maybe pages they aren't finding. You can track goals, conversions. So if you have a sign-up page, if people aren't signing up to it, then maybe you can find out some reasons why with analytics. And then we also have, this isn't so much web design, this kind of helps you with interacting with our Google products and making sure that the Google search bot is indexing your site correctly. Last thing I think we got on tape was Alist Apart, which is one of my go-to resources, particularly for style sheets, CSS advice. And I pretty much learned all of my mobile support responsive design from this website. But some of the other examples I was giving you was Google Analytics, which I think probably everybody has heard of just now. But this is a little JavaScript snippet that you can put on your site. And it gives you this fantastic insight into how users are actually working with your pages. So it's not just a hit count. It will tell you which pages people are going to, which are the most popular, how long people are spending on each page, what countries they're coming from, probably what their default language is, and even the stats on their computer, so they can find out if they're using Explorer or Firefox or Chrome. All this kind of information, which might require you to kind of code your pages in different ways. If you're really going the whole hog, one fantastic thing you can do is set up goals. So you'd have something that you would say would be your conversion, and it might be somebody signing up, it could be to a newsletter or interacting with your light bulb comparison page. And so you can kind of create this goal, see how effective it is, and try little experiments even while the page is live to see what new layouts can help drive traffic through your site. So this is a terrific tool. You can dig very deep with it, and I would certainly encourage you to get the code on your website and start looking at some of that information. So related to that a little bit, we also have something called Google Webmaster tools. So this isn't specifically how to write code. This gives you some insight into how the Google bot actually indexes your pages. And so if there's an issue with how we interpret what you want, if you want to make sure you're kind of being represented properly on the search engines, this will tell you if you've maybe got some broken links on your pages, tell you where most of your incoming traffic is coming from. It's a terrific resource. Again, there's a lot of information. You get a dashboard for any of the web pages you sign up to with this. And again, this is terrific that post-launch you can see how people are interacting with your content, and you can tweak it in response to that. So the key is launching the website is just part one. What you have to do is keep tweaking it and make sure you deliver what people are wanting to use. One thing, we had some teething problems with the demos from this. This is another third-party resource which allows you to create it's user testing. The best kind of user testing is just, to be honest, getting some friends over, making them a cup of tea, sitting them down in front of your computer, and then watching how they interact with your site. But this is if you don't have any friends, this is a great second approach. And so, sorry, I'm already signed into this thing. So what you can do is you can put screen grabs of your website up there, and then you can ask questions. For example, if you wanted to compare an LED with a incandescent light bulb, what button would you click on the page? And it's also a great way to get some insight from other people's tests on here. So this is a standard test you offer, the click test. I'm going to take this myself. Click the button that best represents what you would prefer to do. Start test. Looking for a great way to connect your friends. So send a song to a...
Share your screen there, Rupert, so we can see what you're doing.
Oh, you're joking. Sorry, have I not?
That's all right.
I apologise.
I'm you off with the technical issues.
Okay. I'm going to backtrack a little bit because you'll missed a few of these. I was talking about the Alist Apart site. This one here. Again, links will be forthcoming. Google Analytics. Some nice little animated stuff in here. You can kind of see this phenomenal dashboard stuff, and the product itself is amazing. And this was what the Google Webmaster pages look like. And I think you can probably see some of my dashboard here. I've got a few pages I look after. And so here's an Indian dance site that I maintain, believe it or not. It gives me an idea of where the traffic's coming from and so forth, what people are searching for, how they get to the website. So some good resources there. The click test, this was back to this page. Somebody else has posted this from their own website. Do I want to send a song or request a song? Well, I'm probably going to send a song, so that would be my preferred option. Done. So I've just helped somebody learn a little bit about their website. If I do another, and I've learned a little bit from maybe sometimes somebody else's mistakes about good approaches to do this. On your mobile device, you just typed in 2 domain names to see if they're available. How would you hide the keyboard? Oh, it's a very good question. Here, I suppose. So there we go. So even big companies will use this to test, well, not just the websites, but their mobile apps as well. So I think we're probably going to have to rush this next bit a little bit, but I was going to demonstrate a very, very, very quick, it was going to be a 10-minute website. It's now going to have to be a 5-minute website. So let me see if we can just race through this. As I mentioned before, Twitter Bootstrap is probably my favorite one of these frameworks that I use just externally for some of my own websites just at home. And so if you remember, it was this website here. First thing you'll do is download. And so here's one I previously downloaded. If I unzip this, it basically gives you a series of resources, so some CSS files. There's a few icons for some mobile device icons, and there's a bit of JavaScript. And this can also bring in jQuery, can come in as part of the Bootstrap framework. Right, I'm going to drag this to my desktop, and I'll show you very, very easily just how insanely quickly you can build a website. So I'm shameless in my borrowing, so I'm going to go straight to the examples that they already give. This is one of my favorite layouts. This is one of these nice, it's kind of a classic 3-column grid with this hero element at the top. All the mobile navigation is built in there. You can see this navigation at the top sort of drops into this nice little drop down there, so you can use this on your smartphone. And I said I was shameless, so I'm just going to go straight into the source code, copy it wholesale, and then go straight to my text editor. I personally use TextMate. There are many other good text editors out there, but we tend to avoid the ones that tend to be too elaborate. There's just something nice about something straightforward that basically just does some syntax highlighting, and you get something that's just easy to get your head around. So I've just created my website. I'm going to load this up in the browser. That's file 1 here, and it's broken already. Why is that? Well, for some unknown reason, the code that comes by default from Twitter Bootstrap suggests it's already a few levels up. So what I have to do is just make a slight tweak to these assets folders. So I'm going to search for this and just delete it all the way through. And then if I save this now, it should bring in the CSS properly. So that's exactly the same page we're looking at a second ago. I'll prove it by changing Hello World. This is going to be Hello Sunny Zurich. And if I reload, there we go. So I've got a fairly nice looking website. Yeah. I'm going to tidy it up a little bit. There's some JavaScript that I'm not going to use on this web page, so I don't need this section. And there's quite a large navigation menu at the top, which again I'm not going to use for this example. So it's pretty straightforward just to remove that, and then it's gone. So we have something really straightforward, really simply, and it really is just, you know, minutes. So I'm just going to block this out a little more quickly. We've got these columns in here. I'm going to delete one. It's built on this 12-column grid. You change the number of columns any given, or the number of grid slots any column takes up. I've changed a span 4 there and a span 8. Maybe zoom in a little bit, and then you'll see that we've got this new column that's taken up double the width back there, and it linearizes when you get to a mobile size. And so these are great for dropping some new content in. And again, how easy it is to do this, just because, you know, the code can be written for you. So I had something I quite liked earlier. There was a Zurich YouTube video. So all the sights and sounds. I'm going to click share and embed, and I can just grab the code straight away from that and then put it inside my first column. So instead of heading blah 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 blah, I'm going to add the default code in there. And if I load that page again, now you'll see a YouTube video in there, and it will play straight away. It does bring in some slightly weird code with it, so I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to change it to something a little different with CSS in here, just so it fits the column properly. I'm going to set it to 100% width, and I'm going to give it a height of, I think I was playing around with this earlier, and 320 pixels seemed to work quite nicely. So if I load that page again, we've got it nicely into that single column. But it looks a little bit funny. It's a bit too narrow now, so I'm going to change with a grid I had before. So instead of 4 and 8, I'm going to do 6 and 6 and just make a nice split right down the middle, and that's starting to look decent. And then just as a final thing, I'm going to, well, 2 more things I'll add to this page. This is something I've created just myself using Maps, Google Maps. I've created just my favorite coffee places and good places to take photographs in Zurich. And again, I can share this with other people. There's some links I can just drag directly out of here. In this case, I'm going to take the HTML one, drop it into the second column, and there's a little bit of extra code it adds, which it's like a link to the map thing. I'm going to avoid that. I don't particularly feel the need to have that. I'm going to do this thing as well with give it a style width 100%, and I'm going to match the height of the other column just to make it nice and consistent. That's going to be 320 pixels as well. And if I go back to my page, it's starting to look like a proper website. And very little coding I had to do. It was just copy and paste. And then again, this mobile stuff is built in from the beginning. I mean, that's looking half decent. I wouldn't be embarrassed if people saw this online already. One final thing I'll just show you, just because again, this is so simple. We do something called web fonts. Everybody has this strange favorite web font called Lobster, but if you don't want Times or Verdana or Arial or something like that, you can use something like this. Online again, free to use, quick use. It already generates the code for you. There's one line you put in the head of your page. So I'm going to just drop that up above my style sheet. So that loads in the actual font itself, but then I also need to add the rule to the code itself. So I'm going to add it to the H1, which is at the top of the page. I'm calling it Lobster. I think what I might also do is bump the font size up a bit, because it deserves to be seen big. And so again, if we go back to the page, then you see we have this different look. Now that's not a standard font that comes with your operating system. That's something we had to incorporate from this online thing, but it's so simple. That was the kind of thing that used to be so complicated before. We've got a working video. We've got an interactive map that you can edit via Google Maps. You don't have to edit this web page for this map element to get it updated. You can get directions if need be. It kind of integrates properly with the real thing. And we've got a brand new font that in the old days you'd probably have to make a graphic for, but now we can just do it very straightforwardly with this. And the best bit of all, the support for mobile comes for free. Everything rescales down nicely for tablets or smartphones. That's the kind of thing that used to take ages to get right, and now it's done for you in a 5-minute website, courtesy of Twitter Bootstrap. So I think that's the end of the coding demo. That went far smoother than I possibly could have hoped for. So probably a good time to open this up to questions.
Hi, I'm Ibrahim, and I actually have a question. I was quite intrigued by your confession at the beginning that you started with a biology degree before switching to web design. I was wondering if you could share some pitfalls that you used to make when you started learning web design, and if you could share also perhaps some tips that you wish you would have found out at the beginning of your learning of web design.
Sure, it's a very good question. I think around the same time I was learning to snowboard, and I tried to teach myself to snowboard, and I got the basics right, but I did pick up a lot of bad habits, and then I had to take a lesson at a later date to kind of fix the problems I had with turning. And I look back now at some of my old code, and it was pretty rough around the edges. I learned a lot when I started to validate my pages. And the World Wide Web Consortium, if you just search for HTML validator, there's a great tool that you can use to actually just paste your code into, and it will tell you if there's things wrong with it. And so it's very simple to write HTML because it is just a text file, but to write it properly in a way that's robust across all the browsers, that takes a little bit more doing. But there's fantastic tools that are out there that will help you with that. I would probably say one part, validating your code and learning about how it works. And the second part, just compare notes. If you've got friends that are doing stuff, they're going to be, going for some similar approaches as yourself, but they'll maybe come at it from a completely different angle. And it's always intriguing to see the different philosophies different people bring to it. And if you get somebody who knows a bit more about cascading style sheets, you can learn from them, and then maybe you can swap some advice on JavaScript. So get talking to colleagues or friends, or even just forums, communities online. There's great places to post questions or ask for help, or show off your design as well.
Thanks.
Great.
I have another.
Thanks.
Oh.
So thanks very much, Rupert. I've posted on the G+ Google in Education page the list of links of everything that you've showed us during the session. So everybody should be able to access that. So thanks very much. And thanks very much to our audience down there, both on the Hangout and on the broadcast. Just so you know, this broadcast has been recorded, and it will be available on